Well, if you've followed the channel for a while, you probably remember me saying several times, the only thing better than learning from your own mistakes is learning from the mistakes of others. So what I want to do is today just share a part of my life, my history, and hopefully you'll find it useful in deciding for yourself the issue of marriage or remarriage and your reasons for doing it. Again, this may apply to some of you, not all of you. Many of you have already decided you're going to be a committed bachelor the rest of your life. And I've talked before about the benefits of that, the positives, and it's really a matter of preference. There is no right and wrong. It's just a matter of whether you prefer a single life or a life with someone else, married or otherwise. I've been married 3 times. This is the marriage I'm in now with my Filipina wife is my 3rd marriage. And so what I want to do is share with you my motivations, my reasons why I got married the 1st, the 2nd, and the 3rd time. And hopefully, like I said, maybe you'll find this useful in deciding for yourself whether or not you're going to get married again. And if so, examining within yourself, what is the reason? What is compelling you to want to make this commitment? Because by now, a lot of us, we're already, in our 50s or 60s, and we have finally figured out marriage is no light matter. It's a big deal, and it's a big commitment. A lot of responsibilities come with it. So I'll just go ahead and do these chronologically and begin with, why did I get married the 1st time? Now, I look back on it and I almost don't recognize myself. I'm a completely different person at 62 than I was when I was 19. At 19, unfortunately, like a lot of us, I thought I had life all figured out. I mean, I was only 1 year out of high school, and I just figured I knew who I was, I knew what my goals were, I knew what my priorities were, and I thought to myself, okay, I know I have this woman in my life, that I had met in high school, and, whole high school sweethearts kind of thing. And after graduating high school and everything, I started pursuing my life and then found myself thinking, well, okay, I'm going to get married to her. And I really didn't stop and think, why? I only thought about the fact that I wanted to get married. The whole focus was on what I wanted. But looking back on it now, I can see myself objectively, and knowing all my thoughts and motivations, I can say now that the first time I got married was because the only thing I was concerned with was what I was going to get out of that marriage. What was I going to get? I was going to get companionship. I was going to get intimacy. I was going to get loyalty. I was going to get all these certain things. And at 19 years old, it almost seems like a turnkey solution. It's like, oh, if I get married, that solves like 1/3 of my issues in life, and that's how I looked at it. It was, if I get married, here's the list of things I get out of that marriage. Okay. So that marriage lasted 10 years. So 10 years, I can say much of it was good. Some of it was very unpleasant. And I found that all of the idealism that I had placed upon marriage, because I had no life experience. I was 19 years old. What did I know about marriage? And so what I found was that my idealism had a very hard collision with reality. And finally, after 10 years, I just said, you know what? This is not working for me. What I thought this would be and what it actually became were just unacceptable. And there were other factors because of that. And so because of that, I filed for a divorce and I got a divorce. And, I continued to take care of my kids and spend time in their life and provide for them. I maintained my responsibilities, but as far as the marriage goes, I was done with it. So that was the first marriage. What could I get out of marriage? That was my motivation. So then I spent 6 years after the divorce single. I had never dated between high school and 19. So now there I was in my early 30s just barely getting out in the real world, learning how to date. And so I did dating for 6 years, and as fate would have it, I met this wonderful woman, and she was from Mexico. She had a little daughter that was about 4.5, 5 years old. And funny enough, I could get into the whole story there, but she didn't speak a word of English. I learned Spanish just so I could ask her out. I mean, it took me 2 months, but I finally did it. And, she was a friend of a friend, so I knew where to find her. And so then, it progressed, and it was, pretty kind of like a very beautiful romantic story. So what ended up happening in this case, in the second, she was a very good woman, wonderful woman. None of the problems that you ever hear about. She was born and raised in Tijuana. So we were on this whole adventure where she was learning English, I was learning Spanish, and within about 2 years, I was like 80% proficient in Spanish. And we also were together for 10 years. Actually, if you count the time that we dated before that, it was more like 12 years. Now, my motivation in this second marriage as to why did I pull the trigger and ask her to marry me. When I met her, she was separated from her husband from Mexico, who I don't even know that they were actually married. Because he was illegal also. And as far as I know, they never got married in Mexico. They definitely didn't get married in the States. So, but the thing is, he was the father of her kid. Now, she had already left him before I met her. She had already left him and was living in a teeny tiny little like 10 by 8 mini trailer with her daughter. The whole story there, again, just she was working and doing her best to, provide for her and her daughter. Now her ex was sabotaging her life as much as he could. He figured if he just broke her and made her desperate enough, she would go back to him. The problem is he was a manic, bipolar, narcissist, methamphetamine addict. That's like a trifecta of just pure evil you don't want anything to do with. The guy was off the charts selfish, he was controlling, manipulative, and he was doing it half of the time while he was high on meth. So you can understand why she wanted nothing to do with him and wanted to protect her daughter from him. He would just do crazy things like constantly was trying to get alone with the daughter because his threat to her was that he was going to just kidnap her, take her to some random place in deep Mexico and drop her off on the side of the road, never to be heard from again, just to bring pain to the woman who became my second wife. That's how horrible this guy was. Again, just out of his mind, and all that. So I come into her life, and in the beginning, she was beautiful and long legs and long flowing black hair, and she was the life of the party. Everybody wanted to be her friend. She was a wonderful, sweet, gregarious, happy person. And so it started out in the beginning, it was like at first it was very simple conversation because I didn't speak much Spanish, she didn't speak much English. I found out about her ex right away. She's like, I don't know if I can date. If he finds out, he'll kill me. He'll do so. He'll kill you. He's out of his mind and all this. So my first reaction, or the beginning of our friendship, was me seeing what a threat this guy was to her life and the injustice of how much pain he was causing her. So I just had this need, again, as we men often, kind of respond to, is this need to fix the problem. And so seeing the injustice, I stepped in and I said, okay, tell you what, I'm not an attorney, but I have helped other women to do garnishments. I've helped them to get separation orders, to do their divorce. I knew all the paperwork. I just couldn't represent them in court. I said, I can help you. I'll do all the paperwork so you get all of these things. You can garnish his job. That'll be money for your daughter. We got a restraining order on him and filed for the divorce to get a settlement on custody and all this stuff. But she had to represent herself. There was no money. At the time, I didn't have money to just get her an attorney. So what ended up happening, though, is this process took long enough that I became more proficient in Spanish. So I ended up sitting next to her in her proceedings as her translator. So it was kind of an interesting thing because meanwhile her ex tried to file a motion against me and said, oh, well, she's having a relationship with this guy. He can't be here. And the judge looked at me and he said, what is your purpose here? Now, I already knew the answer. I said, my purpose here is to translate her Spanish to English and your English to Spanish. That's it. And the judge was like, okay, you can stay. Oh man, it drove him crazy. Anyways, so this progressed over a year's period of time. And we started, again, spending a lot of time together and going over the procedures and all this, fell in love with each other. So by the time her divorce was completely all, legal and done, we already knew we wanted to get married. So we got married. And like I said, this was about a year and a half or so before and then after. So we were married for 10 years also. And I look back on it and I really have no regrets. I mean, it was wonderful. We're still good friends. She's remarried now and I'm very happy for her and she's just a wonderful person. We were married for 10 years. Sadly, the issue was not love. The issue was heavy financial stress. I mean, incredible stress. It was like being on the Titanic. And I had a way to fix it, but she did not want, she told me from the beginning, she goes, she's a very loving, giving person, but she's also stubborn. And she would not get on track with the plan I had to salvage us financially. So because we could not come to an agreement there, I mean, literally, I just told her, I go, I can't just sit here and go down in flames. I go, we've got a way out of this. And she was insisting, no, let's do it this way. Well, that's not going to work. So long story there again, I ended up bailing her out financially just so she wouldn't be, ruined and lose the house. I gave her the house and all this. And then she ended up, again, about 2 years later, met the person that she eventually married. They've been married, I think, for like 18 years now, I think, or something like that. So when I asked myself, why did I get married that second time? The answer is pretty clear. I walked in like the white knight. I saw this damsel in distress. She's beautiful. She's wonderful. She's sweet. She's a victim to this guy's cruelty. And there was just no way I could abide with that. And marrying her was my way of further protecting her. It was like before I was her boyfriend and I was helping her with the legal issues and all that. But once we got married, I could face off with this guy and say, look, she's my wife. You back off or there will be legal consequences. You do not talk to my wife. You don't talk to her. You don't message her. You stay away. And fortunately, he ended up out back in Mexico, not of his own free will. He ended up getting deported and then died of a heart attack after so much drug use. So anyway, so he was out of the picture. So that was marriage number 2. And like I said, we hit these heavy, incredibly hard financial times. It created a lot of stress. We were each working full-time jobs, plus a catering company, literally working 7 days a week, still falling behind financially. She was on a day schedule. I was on a night and half day schedule. It was just a recipe for disaster. And even after we divorced, we continued dating for like another 6 months, but we just found we just each had to go and kind of move on with our life. And so we did. So that brings me to the third marriage, which is the marriage that I'm in now. And I have gone on record in a previous video, and I've told many of my friends, I said, you know what? I can't say this is a rule for everybody, but it's my personal conviction. 3 strikes and you're out. If this doesn't work, I'm done with marriage. I am done. I know people say never, and I'm not saying that there's any issues now. I'm just saying that hypothetically, if things were to end, I would not, after 3 failed marriages or marriages that simply didn't last, I would not seek out another wife. I would just, look at all the positives and pros about being a committed bachelor, and I would just live with that. I would be happy with being a committed bachelor the rest of my life if for some reason anything happened to this third marriage. So why did I decide now, after the two previous marriages lasting 10 years each, what made me decide to get married when I was already living in Vietnam? I was happy as could be. I was so happy, I didn't really care if I was dating a lot or dating a little. Women went from being number one on my list down to about 3. I was enjoying Vietnam, the ambiance, the different cities. I was enjoying the food. I was hanging out with my buddies. I was riding my motorbike. I mean, I was having a great time. Again, whether I was dating, and some of you saw the videos, I did date Vietnamese women. Whether I was dating or not, I was just happy just being alive and waking up every morning, just in a complete state of bliss. For the first time in my life, and this is, I guess I was in my mid-50s, everything was copacetic. Everything. My mind, my money, my lifestyle, my glass was full in every single way. I was not looking to get married. I was not looking, I was not looking to leave Vietnam. I was just very, very happy. And then I took many of you have already heard this story. I'll just give you the condensed version. But basically, I took every 3 months, I had a 1-year visa. I had to go physically outside of Vietnam and then come back in, and that was just part of the agreement with the visa. And so, because of this and that, I thought, well, I'll just go to the Philippines. And my buddy Gio was out there in Davao. So we got to talking, and so I went and hung out with him for 10 days. And it was on the 8th day that it was just a whole whirlwind sort of thing. I went back to Vietnam. Then 2 months later, I moved back to Davao to be with her and start the relationship. We've been together ever since. And now it's been, at this point, 6 years that we've been together, and it's worked out really great. Now, I know this sounds crazy, but, and I do not recommend this as a decision, for like starting a relationship or necessarily, but I had first messaged her on the evening of the 8th day I was there. And we chatted online maybe an hour. And I said, okay, I got to meet you. I'll meet you tomorrow. So we chatted like around 6 p.m. that night. And then we met hours later the next day at 11 in the morning and spent the whole day together. And her mom came along, whole big story. But when I first laid eyes on her, when she came into the store and came around the support pillar and I locked eyes on her, it was that spark and magic moment. I knew mentally, it was like I cleared everything off my mental desk, and I knew my one focus was going to be finding out everything I could about this woman. I don't mean finding out like her birthday and all that stuff, but I mean, does she possess the integrity and sweetness and simplicity that I think I perceive here? Because I have dated so many Filipina women by this time, 7 years worth, and I'm familiar with a pretty face. That's not enough. And I mean, there was just this sense of her character. And so we began, and I came back that January, 2 months later, and we've been together ever since. And I told myself, just as I tell you guys, I'm going to take a year to get to know her, because I have this first impression of her, but I don't know, maybe she just had a good day. Maybe, I don't know, she conditioned her hair really well that day, or something like that. I mean, for all I know, I'm making a lot of assumptions. So I told myself, I'm going to spend a year with her to see what is her actual character over time. Over a 1 year period of time, physically with each other, spending every single day together. Every single day. In fact, COVID hit like 3 months later in March. I arrived in January, and by March, we were getting a 1 year lease, and we were locked in there for a year. I mean, literally a whole year, joined at the hip, And instead of getting on each other's nerves, we were like two peas in a pod. I mean, we actually had a lot of fun during COVID. We found all different kinds of ways to just, make the best of it. I remember I bought, when I could get out and get groceries, I got like an inflatable beach ball and we'd play volleyball there in the apartment. And I got her a computer so that she could, learn. She never had a computer before, so I got her a laptop and she was learning all that. She learned editing. I mean, when you got a whole year with one person, taught her how to play blackjack and, she already knew how to play chess and, just a lot of things, So what I found in spending time with her was that the answer was yes. She actually does have character. She is an honest person. She is not a materialistic person. She is not a cheater. She actually is, in her own naive way, just a very innocent soul. And it was so rare that, and I knew this from 7 years dating in the Philippines. Yes, you can find good women, but she like there's good women and then there's her. Just she's in this category of women, and some of you have married this kind of woman that literally would take a bullet for you. I mean, they just, they would donate their blood to save your life. I mean, they would just do anything for you. And not be out of some blind devotion. It's just, that's their character. They're kind to animals. They're kind to old people. They're not looking for how much money can I get, from this foreigner guy kind of a thing. I mean, they genuinely love passionately. So when I saw that was a consistent, real part of her character, I wasn't marrying her to necessarily get something from her. Like what can I take from this person? And I wasn't marrying her to rescue her from anything. She was fine. She was living with her parents. She didn't need rescuing. It became instead, when I reached that point of asking myself, and after I knew her for a year, and actually I didn't propose to her. I think it was almost a year and a half, maybe almost close to 2 years before I actually married her. And so my motivation this time was, what can I give to this woman's life? Not what can I get from her, not what can I take from her, but what can I give to this woman's life? Because after observing her for a year, I was like, you can say all people deserve a great life, but in a very specific way, someone with her great integrity and sweetness really should have a good life. And I wanted to be the person to provide that. It was all about, what can I do to secure her financial future? What can I do to build her up to be an emotionally strong person? What can I do to fill the gaps of what the education system failed her on? What can I do to give her the lessons I have learned over 6 decades of life so that she doesn't have to learn the hard way? See, it became, what can I give her? Now, I knew already from a year and a half living with her that in that process, she makes my life wonderful. She's sweet, she's kind, she's considerate. Again, doesn't give me the sort of grief, about worrying, is she going to cheat on me? Is she going to steal my money? All the usual horror stories that you hear about. I don't have to deal with none of that. Now, do I get on her nerves sometimes? Yeah. And then we work it out and we move past it. Does she get on my last nerve sometimes? Absolutely. In fact, just a couple hours ago, it's like we were having a disagreement about what kind of netting to put on the corral that I built for her garden, But we settled it, It's like, okay, this is what we're going to do, and here's why we're going to do it. We're done. I love you. I love you too. And, we get on with life. But overall, I didn't decide to marry her for what I got from her or to protect her from some, malicious other person. It was more marrying her with reference to, what can I give her? And if you're a committed bachelor and you're totally happy, and then all of a sudden you meet someone and you're like, wow, this is really groovy and we really get along, and maybe I should marry this girl. it's been 8 months. We've been really cranking along good. I would say stop and ask yourself, why would you change things? Because getting married is a huge commitment. You're bringing into your life real responsibility, real life responsibility, and if that doesn't really bring the point home, think about it. This wonderful, great woman that has made your life just so happy and cool and satisfied all your needs and stuff, if you married her and 6 months later, she came down with a really bad medical condition, would you be there for her? Would you be by her bedside? Would you help her struggle through 8 months of recovery or whatever it took? See, that's what I mean when I'm talking about marriage being such a huge decision. I didn't understand that when I was 19, and I don't even know if I understood it when I got married the second time in my mid-30s. But I understand it now. So I got married this time fully aware of the situation, with my motive being more, how can I improve her life rather than what is she going to do for me? And I would say, and again, everybody's going to do what they want, but going by my own life's experiences, I would say that, number one, know your motive for why you're choosing to consider marriage with somebody. They might be a single mother who has kids. Are you really, truly recognizing the responsibility and the commitment that comes with marrying a woman who has some kids? And if you're okay with that, fantastic. My hats are off to any man that will be a father to the fatherless. To me, that is an honorable thing. I know in today's society, the whole red pill mantra is, anybody that would marry a single mother is a simp and a whatever, a beta, this and that. Okay, whatever. That's a very toxic mindset. It's an oversimplification, because when a woman does appreciate that you're being a father to her child and providing and all that, if she appreciates that, then it's one of the best things a man can do with his life. But it's not for everybody. It's not for me. I don't want to raise kids. I've known that since I came to the Philippines. And my big criteria was, I am not going to marry a single mother. I know the responsibility that comes with kids, and that is not what I want to do with the rest of my life. I've done it before. I had the energy for it. I was in my 20s and my 30s, and I was able to do it, but I'm not going to do it again. That's me, okay? But aside from the responsibilities, ask yourself, are you thinking about what you can give this woman in terms of not just money, but emotionally building her to a more mature person and intellectually making her, and again, it takes time to learn how to be a more savvy person in this life, aware of what is harmful in this world, whether it be financial scams, people you can't trust, how much you should share with other neighbors or whatever, just the life lessons of street smarts, you could say. Are you interested in seeing her grow this way? Or is it simply, well, man, the sex is great and she's a blast to hang out with and I want to lock that down for me? If that's the case, I would say just keep on dating. Don't make that commitment, because that commitment is a huge one. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. Again, as I've said for forever, there is no cookie cutter way of doing all this. What works for some does not work for others. Again, there's guys who are very happy raising a whole family, 3-4 kids, even making more babies. If that's what they're happy with, awesome. It's just not for me. And there's other guys who just want to stay single the rest of their life. That's okay too. You have to live the life that you can commit to and be happy with. And I think the biggest disservice we do to ourselves is to allow circumstances and inertia to make these decisions for us. Don't get married just because the flow of things, you kind of get painted into a corner and there you are standing at the altar. Do not let that be the reason why you get married. Do not get married just because, I'm worried about being lonely. No, really look at the situation. So love to hear from you in the comments, and we'll talk more there.